Because we'll be using the chat to send the check-in links, materials, and ballots, we want to make sure it's accessible as possible. So you'll only be able to message the hosts of this meeting. You can control your video and sound by using the camera and microphone icons in the bottom left corner of your screen if you're using a computer. It's probably in the top if you're on an iPad. On the phone, mute and unmute yourself by pressing *6. If you cannot find the camera or microphone icons in the bottom left corner of your screen, please contact your PMA. Remember to check into the meeting if you haven't already. We will be sharing that ballot in the chat, and it should also be sent to you in your inbox. Remember to check into the meeting. Our team just sent the link to check in the Zoom chat. I'm looking to see that that has happened. And it has, so excellent, great job team. So you can just click on that link to check in, or you will see that also in your inbox. If you do not have access to the chat, you have also received the link in an email from Gus at MassDems with a subject line, Open Now, DSC 1/22 check-in. If you're having trouble finding this email, remember to check your promotions or spam folders. If you still do not see the email, please contact your PMA. You can confirm your attendance after 15 minutes by looking at massdems.org/DSC meeting. If after 15 minutes you do not see your name on the attendance list, please contact your PMA. You only need to check in once. When we discuss a motion, I'll ask you to raise your hand using the Zoom function to let me know that you'd like to speak. After hands are raised, I'll ask each person if they plan to speak for and against so that we can have balanced discussion. We'll alternate speakers for and against to ensure our discussions are balanced and we use our time effectively. To raise your hand, depending on your version of Zoom, you'll most likely find it in the participants button in the bottom center of your screen. Click the icon at the bottom of the window to raise your hand. On the phone, press *9 if you would like to raise your hand. If you cannot find the raise hand button or experience technical difficulties, please contact your PMA or message the in-meeting attendants. If the result of the vote cannot be determined by voice vote or Zoom's polling function, we will link ballots in the chat and send links to you via email, just like check-in. If you're voting via email and have not received your ballot after 5 minutes, please contact your PMA. You will need your member ID and PIN number to complete your ballot. If your ID or PIN are incorrect, a member of the MassDems staff will contact you to correct the mistake and confirm your vote. Please only complete the check-in form once and any ballots once. Your vote will be verified by your member ID and PIN and will only be counted once. However, duplicate entries may delay our ballot curing process and delay the results. Finally, I'd like to remind you that this is a business meeting streaming live on YouTube. Please be polite and respectful of your colleagues, volunteers, and staff that make sense in these meetings. If you haven't already, please take 2 minutes right now to check into the meeting using the form linked in the chat. If you can't access the chat, the same form has been sent to you in an email with the subject line, Open Now, DSC 1/22 check-in. You can confirm that your attendance has been recorded after 15 minutes by going to massdems.org/DSC meeting. Okay, before I call the meeting, I'm just going to ask Veronica, are there any other things that need to be cleaned up on the attendance? On the Zoom, any names?
Well, Nigel's going to come help me with the names. So I think that'll be okay. And then someone mentioned that raise hands is not in participants anymore. It's in reactions.
Okay, so it's in reactions. Thank you for letting us know that. Okay, cool. It is currently 10:07, and I now call the January 22nd meeting of the Democratic State Committee to order. Now, I will recognize my wonderful spouse to say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Allegiance to the flag. Actually, look at the one out the door. So we've got one out our door.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of
to
the
the flag
United States
of
of
the United
America
States of America,
and to the republic
to the republic
for
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
Nation,
one
under
nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with
and
liberty
justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
Thank you. Sorry to surprise you with that. Thank you, everybody. Since we are checking in via Google Form, we will dispense with a roll call. Please join me in a moment of silence as we remember family members and friends we've lost since the last meeting. Margaret Claire Powell, mother of State Committee member Arthur Powell. Kim Simpson, husband of State Committee member Kate Donahue. Manuel Lopes, husband of State Committee member Candace Lopes. And State Committee member Sophia Jeffrey. Our thoughts are with our members and their families during this difficult time.
Just fixing folks on the back end.
Thank you. Prior to the meeting, you were sent the agenda via email. It's also on the screen now. Is it on the screen? During this meeting, we will hold elections to fill 3 vacant add-on seats, review and approve the 2022 convention rules, and hear updates from the affirmative action and outreach, JFK Moakley, personnel subcommittees, among some other subcommittees. We will also discuss compliance with attendance requirements later in the meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. So moved.
So moved.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in, is that hand, so there's a 0049. Let me, who is that?
That's John Bussinger.
John, do you have a question? Okay, he's lowered his hand. So all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Welcome to the January 22nd meeting of the Democratic State Committee. Happy New Year. And I hope everyone had a restful holiday season because we've got a lot to get through today and an exciting few months ahead of us. January of 2022 has brought with it a number of anniversaries. 1 year ago, almost to the day, we watched as President Biden and Vice President Harris took their oaths of office on the steps of the Capitol. The precautions taken by the new administration, the health and safety of those around them were clear. A reminder that President Biden would be charged with tackling the crisis his predecessor allowed to rage through the country. Just 50 days after taking office, President Biden led Democrats in passing the American Rescue Plan, a bold and historic legislative package to deliver billions in long overdue relief to families, workers, renters, schools, and more. It ramped up the national vaccination effort, a plan that did not exist before President Biden took office. And now that more than 200 million Americans are fully vaccinated. It was also clear 1 year ago, as President Biden and Vice President Harris stood up against the backdrop of the Capitol building, that the country was deeply divided. The grounds were marred by a violent, hateful, anti-democratic insurrection inspired by Republican leaders just weeks before. In the months since, Republicans in Congress have made it their top priority to halt President Biden's popular agenda. Still, President Biden and Democrats worked across the aisle to build consensus and pass bipartisan infrastructure law, which provided much needed funding to create jobs, repair roads and bridges, upgrade public transit and airports, and ensure clean water and broadband for all. Together, the infrastructure package and the American Rescue Plan form the most impactful legislative agenda for a first-year president. But that doesn't mean there isn't much more work left to be done. And then over the next 3 years, President Biden and Vice President Harris will need partners at the state and local level, partners like Mayor Michelle Wu, who see the challenges we face as opportunities to address climate, racial, and economic justice. As the first woman and person of color elected mayor of Boston, Mayor Wu is deeply committed to making government work for everyone and knows how granular, focused actions can help our capital city achieve big goals. In just a few months, Mayor Wu has invested in public transportation, in housing, and in health and safety of the city at large. Together, just a small sample of great things Mayor Wu will do for the city of Boston. And let me just say, as she is one of our colleagues here on the State Committee, Mayor Wu has been an invaluable partner and friend to us at the party. In 2018, we worked with her to bring back the historic China Pearl Banquet, which now helps raise funds for youth engagement and has been terrific. After a wave of MBTA derailments and delays in 2019, she joined our calls for Charlie Baker to reverse the impending fare hikes. And that's on top of the countless rallies, training sessions, conventions, and more Mayor Wu has joined our efforts to elect Democrats and recruit the next generation of candidates, staffs, and access. That's why I'm thrilled she's here to help welcome us all today. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Michelle Wu.
Good morning, everyone. It's so great to see so many. Thank you so much, Gus, for your very, very kind introduction. Hi, Twitty, also. I am always so thrilled to be with my colleagues on the State Committee and to get the chance to check in about the incredible organizing that's happening all across the Commonwealth. We know how urgent it is right now, and we know in this moment how big of a role our state and local party organization and infrastructure plays. The stakes are really, really high. And I'm reminded of this every morning, 7 a.m. outside my house. Some friends come to express and to channel, frankly, some deep misinformation and emotion that is really a sign and symptom of division driven by national rhetoric of hate and so much of what we see from the last 4 years in DC spilling over into our day-to-day interactions with our neighbors and in our communities. The ability for national party politics, and particularly the National Republican Party, to infiltrate into the policy debates, the urgent actions that we're taking at the local level is really staggering. Our democracy is quite vulnerable, remains so, and everyone across the country just pulled it off last presidential election to really step in and save our democracy. We have a lot more work to do to keep repairing, healing, and building that strength back. I ran a campaign for mayor that was 14 months long. So I've seen a lot of Boston's neighborhoods and the kind of energy that is there on the ground, ready to be channeled into building our future. This past, actually, what day is today? Saturday. Yesterday, the days are like very, very long these days. Yesterday, I had the huge honor of taking part in the USS Constitution's change of command ceremony. We are about to celebrate the 225th anniversary of America's ship of state right in Boston Harbor. And for the first time, we welcomed a woman to the helm of that ship. Commander BJ Farrell took over yesterday, and it was incredible to see the history and legacy of democracy in this country now continuing to break barriers. And we see that throughout our party infrastructure as well, with so many amazing women and people of color and trailblazers taking office over the last election cycle all across the Commonwealth, thanks to organizing and so many of the activists on this call. And we know that if we do our part, this next election, we will see the first Democrat in a while in the corner office on Beacon Hill, and the first woman to be elected to that role. And so I am so excited to roll up my sleeves and be working right alongside all of you and having a successful caucus season, one that really energizes our grassroots all the way through the organization, and to show that the issues we've been delivering on are the issues that our party stands for, that Mass Dem stands for, and that we are making progress on every single day. Housing that everyone can afford, jobs that bring together climate resiliency and sustainability and racial equity, expanding access to transportation and reliability so that we can all be connected in the opportunities that Massachusetts represents, and fundamentally to be a safe, welcoming, inclusive home for everyone. There's so much stress right now out in the world. I see it among so many of the interactions. There's just a ratcheted up intensity as to how much people have been dealing with the isolation and grief and anxiety, really spilling over into very serious challenges in the way that our democracy fits together, in the ways that we communicate with each other. And across the country, I think we are waiting for spots of hope, watching for the beacons that we can turn to light the way for what our pathway will be into a different, more inclusive, equitable, and sustainable future. Massachusetts has always been that kind of beacon, right? It's the reason why we are home to the US's Constitution and why we hold so much space in the legacy of this country's democracy. And it's a reminder that history continues to need to be made. So we're going to make history with Mass Dems this election cycle all across the state. And I'm so grateful for all of your work and activism, building this up over decades and generations for us to be at the point we are now. Thank you, everyone, so much for your activism.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great job. Doing an incredible job, Madam Mayor. I appreciate it and appreciate all your hard work. Wow. Okay, now we're into the meeting and we are at the treasurer's report. Yeah. You've received a copy of the treasurer's report via email. I recognize Kathy Gasparin to deliver the treasurer's report. Kathy?
Thank you, guys. Good morning, Democrats. I hope everyone's staying warm and healthy. We are going to report back on our closed 2021 budget first. As you all received in the email leading up to this meeting, we took some great feedback and actually incorporated some of the percentages for where we ended up on the year. So this is our income statement. As you can see, we started the year with the balance of $254,000. You can see what this, the left-hand column was what was approved. The right-hand column is our actual. And on income, we were above and beyond the state convention. We were just under with non-event revenue, which is pretty fantastic. And due to the leadership of Chairman Bickford and his work in call time. Our leadership circle is our, excitingly, the effort we're doing to raise funds for taking back the corner office and protecting all the down ballot races. And so we have a meeting coming up this week. I'm really excited about digging into that work this year. We were slightly under where we wanted to be with income for 2021. Unfortunately, unpredictable 2021 led us to not have the fundraising events. And we look forward to picking that up in 2022. Digital was far above and beyond, which is awesome. Our Roosevelt dinner, as you all remember, was a great success as well last year. And the Always Unpredictable coordinated campaign, we were at 20% of what we broadly just get estimated for raising, but we were actually even well below that with the spending, as you'll see. So the total income just under 1.25 million for last year. And now if we look at the expenses, we were really significantly below anticipated budgets for this year. So below on office expenses and below on personnel even. The state convention still has one bill that is outstanding for our AV needs. And so we are anticipating that's actually going to be coming up to meet that 75,000 due to the pivot to virtual that we had to do. Fundraising costs, because we had so few events, were actually really below what we anticipated as well. And the coordinated campaign, as I mentioned, we spent, because we had so few special elections in the year, we spent 10% of what we were budgeting. meetings above and beyond in this virtual world we all live in, and then just some miscellaneous expenses and refunds. And proudly, we were above and beyond with the great candidates we had for the scholarship committee to have some stipends further for this year. And so the big thing I want you all to walk away with on the 2021 budget is this last number of the ending cash on hand, which is $483,000, meaning that we're, and it's actually weighted really heavily to the state account. So we're ending the year with a really strong position going into the 2022 cycle. And cheers to the team for both their fiscal stewardship as well as perseverance on a really challenging year for fundraising. So any questions on the 2021 budget?
Move to accept that part of the treasurer's report.
We-
Second.
Yeah, we have a move in a second. I see two hands, so I'm going to go to Bob Peters and Terry Alpha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bob Peters, 4th Middlesex, and thank you, Kathy. Just quickly, I get the variables on the income side, but I wonder, are there opportunities or investments that we're not able to realize because we're not seeing our revenue targets come in?
I'm going to answer directly. No, frankly, we have more money. We have more money at the end of the year. In other words, we're doing fine. I mean, you just need to look at the bottom of the balance. So, no, our focus, is as significantly done is to continue to do the operations, which we have advertised that we want to do well. But then, we're raising towards having a significant source of resources for whomever wins the primary. So our goal is to have $1 million in the bank. We're well on our way to doing that. And so, no, we're doing fine.
Thank you.
Terry.
Yeah, so this might be a more technical question, but I'm just wondering, is there a reason that contributions get refunded? Like, is it just to ensure, that we follow like specific like pledges, or is it more like OCPF related? Because I was just surprised to see that we were.
It's OCPF and FEC related. So basically what ends up happening is someone has the ability to give us 5,000 to our state and 10,000 to our federal. And they may send that check later on in the year, forgetting that they gave to the Roosevelt.
Oh, okay, got it. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
I also want to highlight on Kevin. I'll go to Kevin before I answer another question.
Oh, yes. I was just wondering, and I'm not sure if you necessarily could answer this now, but I think we might want to think about this. The pandemic has changed how these meetings take place. And I very much look forward to meeting you people in person at some point. But it would be interesting to find out, what are the pandemic and the changes that have taken place, including such meetings that we're holding now, and what are the financial opportunities in the future where we might change things from what they had been prior pandemic, and what are the financial, possible costs and going back to what we once had done, and what are the possible opportunities to possibly change, even post-pandemic, and take advantage of what we've done in this time. It's more than a financial question, but I think there are financial implications.
So Kevin, thank you. As you saw during the convention, and frankly, I think we paid that bill yesterday, our video expenses were significantly higher. So our in-person meeting expenses are not as high as they've been in the past. But we do have costs on the other end. Jeanette Rivera, is that a question? Anyway, so someone asked a question. So our consultant, our DEI trainings and our consultant, that will end up in meetings. Someone asked that, I think, by chat. Sam Polton.
Sam's on mute.
I'll give him 5 more seconds. Go ahead, Sam. Yep.
Happy New Year, everyone. I hope everyone is safe and well. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question on one of the line items under coordinated campaign. There's an asterisk that includes communications consultants. And I'm asking because later on, I actually have a concern. Being in communications, we are inundated with Republican communications, if you will. So I'm just wondering who our communication consultants are and what do they do?
Well, right now, communications consultant is Kevin Reddy. Depending on the campaigns that we have at different times, we will likely, as we get closer to the primary date, there will be some consultants that are brought in specifically depending on who our Republican opponents are and other things. But those are discussions that happen during the year as we get closer to election day and primary day and election day.
Offline later on, if somebody
Look
could
forward
put
to
me in touch with them, I'd like to donate as much as I can
Yeah.
to counter all the,
In the radio
Other stuff.
stream. I will pass it on. Sam Liao.
thanks.
Thank you, Gus. You mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that there were changes in the format of this of the treasurer's report, and I would say that I had offered comments previously by email, and I'm very heartened that you have made some changes in this report. I want to compliment both Kathy and yourself. Is much more transparent and revealing than the previous, and that's great. So my compliments to you and to Kathy. Thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
very welcome. And thank you. And so I was going to, and Sam, and so before we go to approving this, I just want to tell everybody how great it is to have Kathy. She's been a real partner in this. Frankly, I encourage all of you who want to help fundraise to reach out to me because it really does end up kind of on the chair's shoulders. And having Kathy has just been incredible. And so she gives me way too much credit because frankly, she makes a tremendous amount of difference. Okay, one more question, then we'll go to approval. Terry?
Yeah, so this is just relating to your comment about fundraising. I'm just wondering, is there like a specific fundraising strategy that we're trying to do? Like, are we trying to basically reach out, call a donor list, or are we
Why don't you give me a,
think of
yeah, there's 7 different avenues and that's not being exact. It could
okay,
be-
yeah, no, we could talk
so
about this offline then. Thank
reach
you.
out to me. Thanks. We do have a fundraising committee that has been active and terrific. So approval of 2021 treasurer's report. All
So
in favor,
moved.
say
So
aye.
moved.
Yeah,
Second.
moved.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Gus, this is Tina Poindexter. I'm gonna have to say no.
Okay, sounds good, Tina. Okay, so now the next one doesn't need a vote because you actually approved it at the last meeting, but we'll put up this year's budget. Kathy, do you have any comments?
Yeah, we just wanted to, again, put up what we're anticipating for this year. You'll see some similarities on the income side, slightly more for the state convention, slightly more for the non-event revenue. The governor's circle is a strong $300,000 that we're working on. The fundraising events, we're excited to put these on the books now that we're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel here. And digital fundraising was approved for $35,000. Roosevelt is at 225, slightly above as well, you'll see. And then the coordinated campaign, as we have a big year coming up here. So we're excited about a total budget of $4.36 million. We'll be carrying in obviously that $483,000. And then if you look at the income side, the office expenses these are also in line with what we've spent in previous years through the party. Personnel, we're going to be absorbing, hopefully, after the primary, some staff to take on the general election. State convention, also slightly more, knowing that we had a hybrid situation anticipated here. And fundraising costs are the same. Our fundraising expenses for the coordinated campaign of $3.5 million, $15,000 for meetings stepped up, and then a buffer for $25,000, which would include our refunds. And we added slightly more for the scholarships and stipends, which you'll hear about. later on today. And so we want to have 2 months of operating expenses. So that's the hope for the ending 2022 as my dog comes in the door with $110,000. So looking forward to working with you all this year. We have a ton of enthusiasm, and I think we're all excited to have 2021 past us.
Thank you, Kathy. As I said, we don't need a vote for that because you voted on the last meeting. And it's been pointed out to me that I skipped over the approval of minutes. We have received 3 corrections to the approval of minutes regarding attendance. Was there any other, and so we will get those fixed. Was there any substance that I have not heard about?
Move to accept minutes as amended, Mr. Chairman.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Second.
Aye.
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 All those-
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Okay, meetings have been accepted. Meeting minutes have been accepted. All right. I don't believe we have an officer report. Seeing no hands. Now, let's have some fun. We are going to our elections. We will move to the elections to fill 3 vacant add-on seats to the state committee, 2 male affirmative action seats, and 1 lesbian seat. Candidates have provided letters of intent, which you have received via email on Wednesday. Now each candidate will have 1 minute to address the committee. We will begin the male affirmative action seats first and go in alphabetical order. For some of these candidates, I've received who they've been nominated by. For others, I have not. So I'm going to first start with Anasol Chowdhury. Do I hear a nomination?
Mr. Chairman. It's Dennis Norton, Mr. Chairman.
Dennis.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I certainly take great pleasure in nominating Anasol Chowdhury for male affirmative action seat.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I just need a name of a second. I do not want a speech. Second?
I second. This is
Okay, we have a
Tina.
second.
I
So we will
second.
recognize Anasol for 1 minute. Hold on. I'm going to get my clock ready. And there's a timer on the screen also. Anasol.
Good morning. Good morning, leaders. My name is Anasol Chowdhury. I'm running to join the Democratic State Committee. I would like to occupy one of 2 affirmative action male seats. I'm a lifelong Democrat and active members of Foxborough Democratic Town Committee since 2016. I have recently been elected as a town of Foxborough Library trustee. I have been an elected delegate and attended our Massachusetts Democratic conventions multiple times. I represent the Muslim community in the Bristol and Norfolk counties, and I'm an active member of multiple mosques in Massachusetts. I'm also an active member of the Bangladeshi Association of New England. I'm very interested to be part of that MASDAM. If elected, my purpose will be help represent diverse voices and priorities, as well as engage your young and infrequent non-voters to participate in the political process. I know time is out, so if you have any question, please reach out to me.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Next is Carlos Garcia, who has been nominated by Jason Palich and seconded by Kate Donahue and Teresa Walls. Carlos, you have 1 minute.
Hello, I'm Carlos Garcia, and I want to thank the DSC for this opportunity. Like many of you, the 2016 elections energized me and encouraged me to get involved locally. And since then, I've been an active member of the Shrewsbury DTC, where I now serve as secretary. Together, we've worked to help elect Democrats up and down the ballot in Worcester County and across the Commonwealth, and I strive to continue that work. I'm the first in my family to graduate from high school, and growing up, I learned a lot about giving back to the community. My father, a proud member of LiUNA Local 272, is the head custodian of a public high school in Worcester, and my mother, a member of SEIU Local 509, is a daycare teacher. And through them, I've learned the value of working together and fighting for a better community. In 2017, I was elected to the Shrewsbury Town Meeting, becoming one of the youngest members at the time. And in 2020, I was appointed to the Shrewsbury Finance Committee. I ran because youth engagement in local government is so important. And as a young gay Latino, I recognize that there is more work needed to ensure that we create a more inclusive society, and I hope to continue that work. I humbly ask for your vote today.
Great, good on timing. Okay. Next, in alphabetical order, is Ronald Green. Is Ronald Green on? Give him 15 seconds and then we'll come back. Okay. Next is Johnny McInnes. Do I hear a motion to nominate Johnny McInnes?
Motion.
Seconded, Mr. Chair.
Who can the person who motioned, I didn't name yourself and send it to, please?
Pero Navarro.
Okay.
Veronica, sorry.
Motioned and second. Okay, so we will now go to Johnny.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I got Juan second and we just need one more second.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had 2 seconds. I appreciate that. Okay. Do we have 2 seconds now, Veronica?
We have so many seconds now.
Okay, good. All right, we're ready to go. Johnny, we go with you.
Good morning. My name is Johnny McInnes. I am a candidate for the Affirmative Action and Outreach Seat. As a board member of the Boston branch of the NAACP, I've already been doing work that coincides with priorities of the Affirmative Action Committee. I'm asking for your vote. I currently serve on the Ward 15 Democratic Committee. Our ward committee has been very active during every election cycle. I participated in interviews with many of the candidates that were running for office in Boston this past municipal cycle. As already mentioned, I am the political director for the Boston Teachers Union, in which I was elected by the members of our union, leaving the classroom as a music teacher, and I'm also play trombone. My job has allowed me to support many different candidates to be elected, supporting ballot questions, which also means I have been on the ground knocking doors, phone banking, and talking to voters about why they should support a particular candidate or cause. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and hope that you will consider a vote for me.
Good job, Johnny. Thank you for that. Okay, so next is Robert Ramos. Do I hear a nomination for Robert Ramos?
Oh, Robert withdrew.
Oh, Robert withdrew. Next is Christopher Spears. Do I hear a nomination for Christopher Spears?
Yes, this is Kevin Coleman Joyce, and I'm honored to nominate my friend and fellow Democratic activist, Christopher Spears. Christopher currently serves as our—
Kevin, we're not doing nominating speeches. Thank you
All right.
for the nomination.
We would appreciate your vote for Christopher Spears.
Yeah. Do I hear as seconds for Christopher?
I do second Christopher Spears.
And
Thank
I
you.
also second Christopher as well.
Okay, he's got seconds. I appreciate it.
And
Now
Kate
we-
Shaw, did you
Okay.
report Kate Shaw?
we have plenty of seconds. We're going to now move on to Christopher Spears. Christopher, waiting. Yep, good. You have 1 minute, Christopher.
Good morning. I'm Christopher Spears, Vice Chair of the Randolph Democratic Town Committee. And interest in city planning, as well as inspiration fueled by Barack Obama's election, led to my run for a seat on the planning board for my town of Randolph, Mass. In 2009. Although I lost that election by 13 votes, I remained involved with my town after being appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals that year, where I still serve. I also went on to serve on the Crawford Square Street City Committee, which helped redesign and redevelop Randolph's downtown. Following Trump's victory, my mother and I joined our Randolph Democratic Town Committee and served as delegates at Democratic state conventions for the last 4 years. I and my fellow committee members have helped get Democrats elected to our town council, as county sheriff, and at the state level. I also campaigned against the anti-transgender amendment on the 2018 ballot. For my efforts, I've been honored to have been elected as vice chair of the Randolph Democratic Town Committee. I would like to work with the state committee in building a bigger, better, and more diverse Democratic Party. This will help ensure we get a Democrat in the governor's seat this year and elect Democrats in the state legislature and at the local level.
Thank you.
I humbly request your vote for an affirmative action seat on the Democratic State Committee.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Christopher. We now will go on to Solomon Steen. who has been nominated by Armani White and seconded by Colin Killick and Jared Hicks. Solomon.
Good morning, everyone. You would think over 2 years into a pandemic, I would have learned how to unmute on Zoom, but here we go. I am a current resident of Worcester and a former member of the NALC, American Postal Workers Union. I am proud that since being a delegate to the National Convention in 2016, I have been deeply involved in municipal and statewide campaigns all across the state and have convened activists, advocates, and community members with our elected officials from the Bay to the Berkshire for candidate forums, for office meetings, with organizations such as MIRA, Neighbor to Neighbor, Violence in Boston, to confront the challenges that are most pressing in marginalized communities that we want to more deeply invest in our party. And I hope if you choose me to be a member of the DSC, I will continue that work in partnership with you. Thank you very much.
Good job, Solomon. And then our final candidate is Brian. I believe he may have withstood. Is Brian?
I thought Brian withdrew, but
He's
I
here.
might be in the meeting.
Okay, Brian. Do we have a nomination for Brian Worrell?
This is Lydia Edwards. I'm nominating Brian Worrell.
Thank you.
Second.
Lydia.
Second.
So I've heard 2 seconds. Okay, Brian, you get 1 minute.
Good morning, Massachusetts Democratic State members. I am Brian Worrell, the District 4 Boston City Councilor. I represent the neighborhoods of Dorchester, Mattapan, parts of Jamaica Plain, and Rosendale. I humbly ask for your consideration of my candidacy and your vote for the male affirmative action seat. My grandparents migrated from Jamaica and Barbados to Boston in search of opportunity and a better life. I'm an extension of helping our community achieve that. There's an appetite to organize for change. For the last few years, we've seen it across our TV screens and social media. However, voter turnout still lags in BIPOC communities. If I am granted the opportunity to become a member of the state committee, I will want to be part of the affirmative action outreach committee and the campaign services to increase civic engagement and voter turnout. It's important that underserved communities are supported to be able to advocate their agenda, educated and equipping individuals with the resources to create tangible changes in their neighborhood will be a reminder to ordinary people that they are capable of doing extraordinary things. We know this to be possible. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. And I believe that we have everyone that has indicated prior that they want to. Are there any additional nominations from the floor?
Move that nominations be closed, Mr. Chairman.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, nominations are closed. We're going to now move over to the nominations for the
You need to take a vote on that?
Oh, all those, thank you. All those in favor of nominations closing, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, nominations are closed. Thank you for catching that. I didn't mean to do that. Okay, we're now going to take, we have on, okay, all right. Okay, hearing none. Tanya Neslucin has been nominated by Maureen Butt and seconded by Diego Sanchez and Rep. Maria Robinson. Are there any other nominations?
Move that nominations be closed, and I'm thrilled that my
Second.
colleague Tanya is.
I second.
Okay, so I hear seconds to the nominations be closed. All in favor of nominations being closed, say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Excellent. Okay, the nominations are closed, and as
Move that
Could we
the
hear a
clerk
minute
cast
of
one
Tanya,
ballot
if-
for the Tanya.
absolutely. I was going to suggest do a voice vote, but we can do one ballot to be cast. A second for that.
Seconded.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the secretary casting one ballot for Tanya Neslucin, say aye.
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 Terrific.
Aye.
Any opposed? No one is opposed. Before I recognize Tanya, because I'm going to give her some time, I'm just going to let you know the ballots are now being sent out for the male affirmative action seats. You can vote for two. You do not have to vote for two, but you can vote for two. You can vote for up to two. You can vote for one or two. The ballots are going to be out. Procedurally, this is what's going to happen. We will listen to Tanya, then I'm going to recognize, we'll take a 4 or 5 minute break so people can focus on the ballots. And then we'll do some, the ballot will remain open for an additional 15 minutes. And we'll just do some business for those 15 minutes and then we'll say the talent. So ballots are out. Tanya, congratulations.
And who are we voting for?
We're going to mute, first of all, I'm going to mute everybody before we recognize
Pardon?
Tanya. Hold on. So Tanya, you're going to have to mute yourself.
I haven't got a clue.
All right, Tanya, you just need to unmute yourself. Congratulations.
Thank you, Gus. And just for clarity, for everyone on the call, most of you know I'm already on the DSC as a caucus representative from Webster, Hampton, Hampshire, and Middlesex. But due to redistricting, I'll be moved out of that district, which is why I'm going for why I was going for the lesbian seat now. For those of you who don't know me, I am from Sturbridge, Mass. I am the affirmative action officer on my town committee. I have been involved for many, many years. I am one of the co-chairs of the LGBTQ outreach subcommittee. I'm also the co-chair of the Bay State Stonewall Dems, and by day I'm the executive director of Mass Equality. So I'm really, really thrilled and grateful to be continuing my work with you. Thanks.
Terrific. And thank you for all the hard work that you've put in. Okay, folks, we are going to take a 4-minute break. I'm setting the timer on. We're going to keep everybody muted, no talking, 4-minute break. Focus on voting. The ballot will stay open for approximately 15 minutes or so after that. If there's no action, we'll close it after 10 or so, but we'll say 15. And so we're doing a 4-minute break. Okay, folks, we are going to get back into the agenda. While you vote, the ballot is still open. The ballot is still open. I'm going to, while people are voting, I'm going to recognize our Executive Director and Coordinated Campaign Director, Veronica Martinez, for the coordinated campaign report.
I will definitely dive right into that, but I also see that Sam has his hand up, and so I don't know if we wanted to grab Sam.
Oh, I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. When I submitted the, what I thought was the vote, a message came back up from the screen that says your attendance has been recorded. I would have thought that it should say, is that a typo or
Yeah,
just,
I think.
can I confirm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Sorry, so-
typo.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
what
great.
they did was copied the ballot from
Yeah,
attendance.
so folks, sorry about that. When you vote, it's going to say your attendance is confirmed. It should have said your vote is confirmed, but that's just because someone copied and passed forward the ballot. I see one more hand before we go to coordinated campaign, and we need to be careful about the questions. We don't want to influence any of the votes. Bob Massey.
Muted, Bob.
Yeah, you muted, Bob.
I will wait till the vote's concluded if you could call on me again in the future.
Okay, sure, thanks. Okay, we will go to the coordinated campaign with Veronica Martinez.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen for you because we have some good slides here that I'd like you to see. So we are continuing with our Blueprint to 22 program. As many of you know, and we talk about it every meeting, this is our landmark program. This program not only sets us up for a strong foundation for the 2022 coordinated, but also frames the party, readjusts the party as a welcoming entry point for anyone who shares our democratic values. And what I mean by that is for the 2022 coordinated, we're building a network of 50,000 volunteers through this program. But the participants are learning field tactics and building relationships by completing community service projects within their local area. And so they're also building relationships with folks who may have never engaged with the Democratic Party before, but want to learn about our kind of shared values. And so some of the slides that I have here, sorry, 1 second. I wanted to share the Quincy Democrats here. They bagged over 270 lunches. I think this was a great example of an activity that one of our local groups did that can engage families, they can engage new members, and you'll also meet other folks who are already doing this type of community service in your neighborhood and can talk about the Democratic Party. We also had really successful MLK food drives. So our new Boston City Councilor and our new mayor both participated in this food drive. And I think this really highlights the fact that elected officials are able to get involved with these programs. Of course, neither of them are in a primary, but this is also an activity for potentially primary candidates to engage. You're engaging in an activity that makes the Democratic Party better without directly impacting electoral issues during a primary. And so this is a good way to engage your local elected officials as well. And beyond elected officials, you can also engage local organizations. And so we have the painters here supporting our food drive, as well as another Boston City Councilor supporting as well. So it's a good way to build relationships with organizations in the area. And then finally, I think I have 2 more slides, but one of them is that this shows real results, and these show tangible results that are great for sharing on social media and also in the news. And so I think I had it in the first slide, but this is a great thing to share on social media to show what your committee is doing or what your group of Democrats are doing in the area as well. We want to make sure that when we're doing this program, we're recognizing our calendar and the activities of the Democratic Party. That way, we're not asking chairs and volunteers to double their schedules. These community-based activities should be things that they're already doing. We don't want to create another thing for you all to do. We know that you're already engaged with your community and that you're doing work for the Democratic Party. And so for January, we really focused on centering it around MLK Day because we knew a lot of communities and committees would be doing activities for MLK Day. Similarly, for February, we know that many areas will be hosting caucuses. And so we see that as an opportunity to bring in new folks. There will be so many caucus attendees. I don't have to tell you all in a gubernatorial year, especially a year like this, there are going to be so many caucus attendees. We really want to recruit, mobilize, and re-engage them for Blueprint as well. So that's kind of an overview about what we've been working on. Would love to chat with anyone about Blueprint anytime. Always happy to talk about that. And so I'll drop a couple of links here if you'd like to sign up and learn more, but otherwise feel free to shoot me an email and we're happy to discuss it with you.
Thank you, Veronica. Okay, the ballot will remain open for approximately another 5 minutes. We will do the DEI training update while the ballot is still open. And so I would like to invite and recognize our subcommittee chairs, Linda Monterio and Jillian Hinkson, to deliver an update. And they may not have known we were going to do this.
Oh, that's because I think Carol is on the line as well.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah, we were planning, I thought Carol was going to present.
yeah, she is. I thought you might want to introduce her. Well, anyways, so with help from
We
members-
can definitely do that if you want.
I've got a paragraph. So with help from the members of the Affirmative Action, LGBTQ, Disability, and Women's Outreach Subcommittees, the party is contracted with Carol Thomas and Associates, a Boston-based agency, to develop a diversity, equity, and inclusion training program for the committee members and staff. As a speaker, trainer, thought leader, and business owner since 1987, Carol Thomas is an expert at moderating discussions of key issues affecting us today. Carol holds degrees from Emory and Northeastern University, is a certified diversity meeting professional and former Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Forum chair for the Northeast Human Resources Association. Carol's here. So Carol, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gus. Thank you, Veronica, and for Nigel and all my friends, Linda, who I'm working with. I'm very happy to be with you today. I have 5 minutes and I have my timer on. We'll have time for a quick couple of questions and then we can go forward. You've probably heard my name. You know that this contract was signed some months ago. So I want to walk you through what we've done so far and where we're headed. So I'm going to share my screen and take you through just a few slides. And I probably need permission, probably need to make me a co-host so that I can go on and show my slides.
There's someone doing that right now.
Okay, great. Great, thank you very much. All right, just give me a second for them to come up. Great. And you should see some very blue slides, appropriately blue at this time. And let me go on and start the slideshow. Great. Let me move my slides over. There we are. And get going. Okay. So again, thank you so much. This is all about diversity, equity, inclusion. Sometimes people use the word multiculturalism. I use that word. Another word that's being used now is called belonging. So you can put any kind of other noun or adjective after DEI, but DEI certainly is a mainstay and very much a part of this party, as I have heard from the various candidates running for the add-on seats and for the work that you continue to do. Right. Let me just share with you that the contract was signed about the end of the summer, very early part of fall 2021, and it looked like it was going to be about a 6 to 9 month assignment, which it is, just based on the work that we're currently doing, the work that we're preparing to do, the training sessions that will take place, and then the various recommendations that will happen. So the assessment component is happening right now. The implementation will take place shortly, and then the recommendations following that. So what we're doing now is we are looking at the assessment component, where we have actually interviewed 16 members of the Democratic Party, all different kinds of individuals, which I'll talk to you about very shortly. We're then going to identify some facilitators to help moderate our discussions during our training component, which will take place next, and then next steps and recommendations will happen. We've had, again, a number of 16 people altogether from different ethnicities, including white, black, Latino / Latina / Latinx, depends on which terminology you want to use, biracial as well. And we've had persons with disabilities included. The actual work is going to be done between October and January in terms of our one-on-one conversations that we have had. Our candidates and our members of the Democratic Party come from all walks of life and all locations here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, from Boston to Chicopee to Springfield to Wakefield to Wayland to Newton, etc. Gender identity has also been included in this, including men, women, trans men, and queer men as well, and sexual orientation, including heterosexual, gay, and lesbian as well. And we also looked at a number of different issues. So we looked at age, which is a prominent one in terms of multi-generational dynamics. We also looked at race in terms of unconscious bias and things that may have been said or done and how they're interpreted by others. Disability issues, which was a learning curve for me, even though I've been doing this work for about 35 years, but specific recommendations and suggestions that were made by individuals who could really help us to embrace and understand disabilities in a more inclusive manner. The LGBTQIA community and serving that community with respect and dignities to include them in. And then ultimately looking at the fact that this Democratic Party has all different kind of categories and representations. It's just a matter of how can we create a more unified force, one where unity and cross-cultural collaboration is the norm here. That is the big thing that we want to work on. So it's all about collaboration, working through cross-cultural points of understanding so that as we approach the gubernatorial election and the midterm elections and the elections in 2024, the Mass Democratic Party will be solid and unified based on all of the categories mentioned above. So with that said, those are the quick slides that I wanted to share with you. I'd love to entertain some questions, and this work certainly is very engaging. We are well into it, and we hope that it's going to be very meaningful and beneficial as we approach our primary elections in the fall.
Carol, thank you. If there are any questions, 1 minute remains, and then we close the ballot. So 1 minute. I am seeing that a hand has been raised. Christopher Jenkins.
Yeah, hi, good morning. I was just curious as to whether these, you said you had interviewed, I think, 16 people within the party. I'm assuming the state committee members. Is that process ongoing to kind of have some one-on-one? Because I'm always look a little bit askance to what direction things like this should go. So just, and I, now's not the time for it, but individual conversations might be helpful.
I'm open for more conversations. I have a structure that I use, and because of the importance of this campaign and this initiative, I certainly will be more than willing and welcome to have more individuals to interview.
Terrific. And Kevin, and then Elaine, and then we'll close it off. Kevin?
Yeah, I was just wondering, the last few decades, the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans have to do to a large degree of matters of diversity. And of course, the Democrats, not to their credit, have been much better. But at the same time, the Republicans often mercantile right, and the Democrats professional educated classes, even though diverse.
Question.
Wondering, working and poor people, is that a criteria that's important that we could take into consideration?
Well, that's a great question, Kevin. And what I've found with the individuals who I've interviewed, there has been a cross-section in terms of socioeconomic dynamics that are in play that I always look at. So not just looking at a particular class of individual or one ethnicity, but looking across the board that has been represented in the 16 people who I have had a conversation with. But again, the more the merrier. We certainly would like to have more discussion so that we can better represent the party as a whole.
Okay, Elaine.
Thank you.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman. Carol, I just want to thank you for being part of this project with us. Many of our members on the DSC were advocating for this kind of training, and partially because not only do we need to work in the many communities across the state, but also because we've had some really tense internal interactions among our members. So one of the questions I have for you, and also just for the other leaders in the party, is, many of us who were advocating for this training wanted it to be required for all DSC members. I know that's not something that we necessarily can force people to do, but I want to know kind of encouraging messages that Gus, Veronica, other staff in the party are going to be doing to make sure that if DSC members are not signing up for these trainings on their own, that they are getting encouraged to do it with a phone call, email, pushing everybody to make attendance as robust as possible.
That sounds like it's a question for me, so I'm going to say absolutely, Elaine. And we are also planning on showing those people that have attended the trainings. So there will be a list of members that have attended trainings, but we will be strongly encouraging people to do this. I really want to try to get back to the agenda. So if I may, I see 3 hands. Am I able to get back to the agenda, or are these really quick questions? So I'm going to try one. Got 15 seconds, Marie.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. I just wanted to ask, what's the process if we'd like to have an opportunity to meet directly with the consultant?
Excellent. I'm going to say this to everybody: reach out to Veronica or Nigel, and then we will hook anybody up with Carol. So any one of us are very involved. I'm going to go back to the agenda.
Thanks. It's a great opportunity. Thank you for creating it.
I'm going to go back to
with Carol then in that case. Thank you.
Excellent. And Sam, if you would mind doing the same, or me, that would be great.
Thank you very much.
Carol, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The ballot is closed. So we're back to the agenda. The ballot is closed. The staff will inform me when counting is complete. We are going to go back to the agenda as it currently is, and we will go to the Rules Committee. Bill, if you would be so kind as to let me interrupt you at a certain point when the balloting tallies have been done, I will go to you.
Who knows? We will be very quick there maybe today, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Democrats. On behalf of the Rules Committee, today to talk about the proposed rules for the 2022 Democratic Convention, June 3rd and 4th in the city of Worcester. Before I get to our report on the rules, let me preface it by saying 2 things to put this in context. First, the Rules Committee is very aware of the current public health conditions in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And second, this will probably not be the last word on this. We have an April meeting of the full DSC, and the Rules Committee will obviously assess, working with the chairman, of what is going on in Massachusetts public health wise, and come back to this body with any updates that we believe should be before you. In that context, let me present our unanimous report from earlier this month. You have in front of you the proposed rules of the 2022 Massachusetts Democratic Endorsing Convention. I will quickly run through it and then be happy to take any questions. On the first page is the typical the chairperson appointments, and then the order of business. And what you see in the order of business is a hybrid or / remote voting process that is consistent with our method of selecting delegates. So for instance, in the charter amendments, there is the typical charter amendments process that takes place, and recommended charter amendments. Those not recommended then have a process they can use of 500 delegate signatures, and they'll be presented in May. And you'll see through the dates that go through the process that culminate in a voting window between May 24th and May 31st. Also, that is a 250-word statement that can be put out to all state committee members. This is consistent with the process that was just used in the platform for the 2021 convention that was online. You'll find in page 2 that we recommend using the same process for the resolutions with the resolutions committee, and the process that culminates again in a vote between May 24th and May 31st on an online vote. As you move forward to number 2, endorsement procedure. And there is a series of candidate requirements that begin with the filing with the state party on January 28th and lead us to number 2 in that section of the nominating process. You'll note that we've made a slight change of actually putting a time limit on nominating speakers. As the chairman explained to me, it gives us great ability at that point to cut off speakers who are actually hurting their candidate by going on too long in the nominating process. Number 3 is consistent with the Dukakis McGovern Commission, is the order of doing business and ballots. It is, I believe, our belief at the moment that we may have 5 contested. So I think it's safe to say there'll be at least 2 ballots, but the chairman will work that out with the party and the candidates. Number 3, endorsement voting. The voting process, there is no change there as you go through 1 through 3. Number 4 is it's consistent with past practice, the 15% rule of 1 ballot to get to a final 2 runoff. You need 15%, obviously, to make the ballot. Number 5 continues to be our frustrating Dukakis McGovern recommendation on endorsed candidates. That has really never been put into effect because of state party change needed. The rest of the section, 6 and 7, consistent. Number 8 is obviously challenge of a roll call. 9 and 10, there are no changes. In section 4, voting on a charter and resolutions, as I explained earlier, it's electronic or telephonic ballot. Those results will be completed prior to Friday, June 3rd, and announced at the convention on Saturday, June 4th. Alternates, section 5. There will be a 2-hour window. Commences an hour before the convention starts. 30 minutes in, the chair will announce, remind everybody that there is a roll call ballot going, and it will go for 30 more minutes. At that point, we will commence the switches of alternates for delegates. The appeals section, there were no changes. No changes in motion to suspend the rules, no changes in quorum. Reminder on the rules of procedure that this is a credentials committee and that over the past 3 or 4 or 5 conventions, we've changed the rules to say that all credential challenges shall be completed prior to the convention. The only challenges that exist at a convention are either on the delegate's identity or whether they were accurately recorded on a vote that they took. The remainder of this section is consistent with past practices at nominating conventions. It is unanimous recommendation of the Rules Committee that the State Committee adopt these rules for the 2022 convention. Any questions?
Thank you, Bill. And before we get to questions, I do want to announce that we do have results in the election for affirmative action seats. I want to congratulate the 2 winners, Carlos Garcia with 134 votes and Johnny McGinnis with 122 votes. Congratulations, both of you. For the minutes, I'm going to say Solomon Steen received 81 votes. Anisul Chowdhury received 65 votes. Brian Worrell received 45 votes. And Christopher Spears received 38 votes. I'm going to encourage us to try to keep the discussion of the rules to 20 minutes. I see a hand from Bob Massey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say that although I made my choices in this last election, I was deeply impressed by the quality and experience of all the candidates. And I want to thank them for running. I want to thank them for what they're doing for the party already. So please keep going. And I want to encourage every single one of them to continue to seek to be involved because the quality and experience across all these candidates was really extraordinary. And I don't want anyone who didn't win to think, well, that was my chance. This is an opportunity to embrace some really significant talent that and people who put themselves forward. So I want to thank them and urge them to continue to do so.
Here.
Thank you for mentioning that, Bob. I appreciate that. I should say the same thing. I really do. Terry.
So I just want to say thank you so much, Bill, and thank you so much to everyone on the committee for these rules. I was just curious though, because I know like in my experience with the last convention, like especially with the signing of amendments, I do think like if there was one critique I had of that, you know, it was like a lot to fill out. So like the forms itself, you know, it took a long time. Like I think I signed like probably like something like 50 amendments. And that took about like, I thought it was going to take like something like 15 minutes. It took me like about an hour to like an hour and a half at least, I think. So I'm just curious, like to know like what the situation will be like if we're going to keep that, because I'm just worried that especially if we have like a ton of
Terry,
amendments or charter amendments, it could take like a long time.
Right. So I'm going to encourage you to work with us and anyone else that wants to work with us. The good news is we have much more time for this convention than we did, as people recognize, because we had to we changed at the last minute for the last one. So let's work on that, and we should have all of that done by the April meeting. And
Hey, Gus.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt, but Allison had a really good point that Terry is specifically or is referencing the platform process where our submission window overlapped with the signature window.
Yeah.
So that's the difference here, is that we have stacked windows rather than
Okay,
overlapping.
excellent. That's a good point. We do have more time, but to that point, please reach out to the staff, Terry, and we will see if there are ways to streamline. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill, I think you made reference to the need of 500 signatures in the case of presenting something regarding the charter amendment. When it came to the platform, did we reduce the number of signatures that were required, given that we were dealing with a virtual environment at that point? And you know, is the 500 a hurdle in the current environment that may be extremely difficult for people to get to?
I believe we did drop it in the platform. If my memory serves me right, and Veronica will correct me if I go wrong, I believe we dropped it to 300.
Yeah, it was 300, but we've alternated. It wasn't reduced because of virtual. It was reduced because we do that sometimes years with smaller attendance as well. And I think we saw a lot of, the staff can attest to it. We saw a lot of participation virtually, so I don't think it reduced participation.
The committee is always reluctant on charter amendments, you know, which is our main document, to make it a real simple process to change charter. But it's certainly within your right to offer something.
Thank you.
Seeing no other hands, do I hear a motion to accept the rules as presented?
So move.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor of the rules, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hear no opposed. Congratulations. The
you,
rules have
Mr.
been
Chairman.
passed. The rules have been approved. I don't recognize those initials. Can someone on staff help me there?
Oh, that's Leslie Phillips on my phone, Gus.
Okay, so I'm going to rename you Leslie as you raise your hand. Now the rules, I've ruled on, Leslie, just so you know, the rules are passed, so.
Yeah, I was trying to get, I just had a question for Bill.
Do you want to hold that for a different time?
Well, it's about the rules. So while the subject is fresh, if I could just ask it quickly.
Okay.
It's a simple question, simple answer. And I apologize, Bill, that I didn't get a chance to raise this at our rules committee meeting. But I was just referencing back to make sure I had the right language from the charter. That's why I got lost on the way back over here. Article 9, Section 1 of the charter says the charter amendments have to be approved by a majority of the delegates to a convention, which back in the days of live conventions, I always thought meant a majority of the delegates as certified by the final report of the Credentials Committee. I don't think we went through that formality back in September. So whether that mathematically was an issue or not, I have no idea at this point. But my question, looking forward, would voting on charter amendments at this convention be a majority of the certified delegates, or simply a majority of those voting in an online vote?
I think Leslie, that never came up on because obviously it is before the convention with the attendance roll call. I believe it's simply 500. I believe it's the majority of those present and voting. But Mr. Chairman, I really don't have an answer for that.
I'll let Jim overrule me, but again, the good news is the rules do not have to be approved until 2 weeks before the convention, so we can readdress this in April. Okay, so we will. I'm think that I'm with Bill, but so.
Gus, can I just point out?
Thank you. Yeah.
People will have had to register in some fashion in order to vote prior to the convention, and so it will be a majority. As I interpret the rules, it will be a majority of those who have registered to be able to vote.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Ted Gross. And let's remember, we've already voted on the rules, so I really want to get back to the agenda. Ted?
Well, I have no question about the rules for the convention, but I had a question that dealt with the caucuses, where as to who this basically is dealing with ward committee caucuses, where under the new lines that have been drawn for the redistricting, my understanding is that where the ward committees and even our state committee membership, we're under the old
That's correct.
lines until the next election. So everybody that it shows up at the caucuses should be under the old lines, not the new lines.
Yeah, so Ted, thank you for asking, and I've had this question from other people, so I'll share it with all the membership. We are under, for these caucuses, we are under the old lines for a couple reasons, but most specifically, when you're elected to presidential primary, you're elected for that ward for 4 years. That being said, the new lines will not be on the file by the caucus window, so there won't even be an option to do that. So when you run your caucuses in cities, you're running them under the old ward lines. And I'm glad, the one other thing I wanted to mention is we do have the caucuses coming up, and I really am going to, and I'm going to reach out to people early this week coming up. The deadline to call the caucuses is Friday. We're going to share everybody in their Senate district, the caucuses that haven't been called. Please make every effort to outreach to your chairs, get those caucuses called, because I do believe this will be a year when, if a caucus is not called, within 10 days after that, 10 Democrats can call their own caucuses. So please help your chairs call their caucuses. And then we need your help. We need your help if you're technical, to be a technical assistant. But even if you're not technical, but you're comfortable on Zoom, we need your help to be tellers. And this is a great role for state committee members to play in the towns and wards in their Senate district. There will be a technical person for the caucus. If it's a virtual caucus, and a chair, they'll call a meeting prior to the caucus, and they'll invite, if you have identified to us you want to be a teller, they'll invite you to that meeting, and literally you're just going to help them take the votes as they come in online. And basically the way, I don't want to get into it here, we're doing the trainings next week, but really quickly, we're going to encourage people that have more than 12 or 15 people in the room to do votes by, and not the big ones, but so the medium-sized ones, to do their votes by actually just chatting the votes to the tellers in the chat section, and those tellers will count the votes. So we'll go with that. I'm about to go to the next section. I see 2 hands raised, but then I'm going to recognize new state senator, and then I'm going to go AOC. So going to go to the 2 hands, and then I'm going to go to our new state senator, Lady Edwards. Juan.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I know you don't want to get into this here,
Sure.
but are you all doing technical assistance for the caucuses and or providing Zoom as?
Yeah,
you know,
so the trainings are happening next week.
Right.
There's much more need for technical assistance, so we need much more help. So we're not saying right now that we can provide it with staff. We're really encouraging you to look locally for someone technical that we can train, because there is a significant need for it this year. And we have the expertise to train anybody, but we're putting all our effort, we have been for 6 weeks, in preparing the trainings and preparing the caucus, everything else, and we will for the next 6 to 8 weeks. We're going to make sure that we help everybody do this smoothly. So Wando, just make sure you reach out. Carlos, and then we're going to go to Lydia.
Mr. Chairman, has there been any consideration to work with the Secretary of State when organizing our caucus, so they sort of like can make the nomination papers for the candidates available, around the
So
time?
Carlos, the answer to that is we need to have, he can't do the papers until the date of the primary's been set, which I think is going to happen relatively soon. The secretary has been extremely good in past years in getting nomination papers ready by the caucuses. We've called our caucus dates. I know that he would love to make sure that that happens, but the date of the primary has to be set first. So
Yeah, it seems that he already chose February 15, and by the 15th,
no, that's in statute, but a lot of times he's released them beforehand. But again, I'm not going to put words into his mouth. It's actually not even in my ball court, but I
So
appreciate.
that's first. The second question is,
Yeah.
is the party issuing a letter recommended that the numbers of signatures be reduced once again? Because obviously we're still, on the pandemic, and it's going to be very difficult for the candidates to gather, county commission is 1,000 signatures, and the individuals, maybe even be more, so.
Okay, understood. Look forward to, let's you and I talk offline about that. Excellent. Okay, I am going to now recognize, we have precedent doing this when we have special elections. We just had one very exciting special election, and not only is she our new state senator, but she is a member of our body. Senator Lydia, is she there? Lydia Edwards?
Hi.
There she is.
I am
Senator Edwards. Thank you. I didn't see you. Senator.
No problem. Hi. I just wanted to say thank you all. I know that the party put out an email on the day of the general, and I look forward to being an active member of the continued active member of this body, and to push for our agenda as the new state senator for the 1st Suffolk and Middlesex, soon to be the 3rd Suffolk. But in any event, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you all for your support, whether it was to be a city council or to be a state senator today. I look forward to also looking to get your support as I go to gather signatures next month already as I run for re-election. But I'm honored to be here, excited to continue to fight the good fights. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator. And thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Congratulations. Okay, we're back to the agenda. And so now we're back to the AOC. So this time we will invite Carol, Linda Montero, and Jillian Hinkson for the Affirmative Action and Outreach Subcommittee report.
Good morning, Democrats. Happy New Year. First, we'd like to acknowledge the great loss of our long-term AOC member, Sophia Jeffries. She was a mentor and friend to many and a stalwart of the party. Our committee has lost 2 steadfast members in the past 6 months or so, Sophia and Randall Tatum, both of who were relentless and dogged in their efforts to uphold the democratic values for all of us. It is our goal to honor them and their work by continuing to maintain their high ideals and standards and working hard to ensure there is a seat at the table for everyone. Secondly, we want to thank all the awesome candidates, Carlos, Anasul, Solomon, Christopher, Brian, and Johnny, that ran for the 2 open male AOC seats, and want to congratulate our newly elected DSC members, Carlos Garcia and Johnny McGinnis. The AOC committee looks forward to not only working with Carlos and Johnny, but also would like to personally invite all the candidates, Anasul, Solomon, and Brian, and Christopher, that ran today, to consider joining the AOC committee. We would love to have you join us and welcome your input on our work to make sure everyone's voice is heard. As Bob mentioned, you do not have to be a member of the DSC in order to participate in any of the subcommittees. The AOC committee continues to support the planning of the upcoming DEI training for the party. We are planning to meet next Wednesday, January 26th, with other members of the DEI working group and the consultant Carol Copeland Thomas on the development of the DEI training. Please stay tuned for updates on this process and how you can take part in this training once it's rolled out. If you have any suggestions for the training, please feel free to reach out to Jillian or me or any member of the DEI working group. The AOC committee met on November 23rd. The meeting included introductions of the co-chairs of the 3 new affinity groups, AAPI, the African Descendants, and the Latinx. AOC plans to work collaboratively with these affinity groups to support the upcoming caucuses to ensure a diverse representation of delegates at the convention and to work on the Blueport 22 efforts to get out the vote and win back the corner office. Finally, please save the date for the upcoming meeting of the entire AOC committee planned for Wednesday, February 9th at 7 p.m. We plan to map out AOC's short-term and long-term goals to help advance the party and get more Democrats into office throughout the Commonwealth. This concludes a report of the Affirmative Action Outreach Committee.
Thank you, Linda. We will now move on to campaign services. It was co-chaired by Kate Donahue and Amanda Smith. I'd like to invite Amanda Smith to start with the report.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's great to see everybody. I want to just really briefly echo what everyone else has said, that the candidates that ran today were outstanding. It was insanely hard to choose. You guys made it very, very hard for us. So I congratulate those who were elected. And I would like to also echo what Linda said for AAOC, that Campaign Services welcomes anyone to join our committee, even if you are not a member of DSC formally. So, oh, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Okay, good. Okay, thanks. I thought there was a glitch on my end. So I'll be really quick. The main initiative that we've had for Campaign Services for the past year, and I can't believe it's been an entire year, has been the Organizing Hub, which has been our weekly virtual organizing hub on Saturdays, 3 to 5 p.m. and that includes today. And would like to encourage anyone to attend today's organizing hub. We have been doing this every weekend with only a couple of breaks for holidays, and the attendance has been extraordinary. Every weekend we have new people, and then we also have folks that have literally come practically every weekend for a year, which is amazing and has exceeded all of our expectations. We have helped out on special elections and emergency local elections here in Massachusetts and been very successful in a lot of those efforts, which has been really satisfying. We've also been projecting our power, so to speak, beyond the state of Massachusetts, and have helped out any number of state Democratic parties from Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Georgia. And we are currently really trying to help out New Hampshire. I don't have to tell anyone on this call that the New Hampshire coordinated campaign this year is going to be very, very important on so many levels. So we've been really working closely with those folks, but we are obviously going to be rotating what we're doing. So I just want to thank everyone who's participated in the Organizing Hub so far. The link is in the chat if you want to sign up for today or for a future date. And just encourage folks to join us. We have formally extended the Organizing Hub schedule through the end of March, very deliberately, to be a couple weeks after the last caucus would happen. So please use that opportunity as you have caucuses rolling out in your communities to plug the hub and invite people and encourage them to come. It's a great community. It's a great way to build skills, great way to build activism and organizing into all of our schedules and stay in that good habit as we have a very exciting year here in Massachusetts, but also the midterms as well. So thank you very much. Over to you, Gus.
Okay, I just want to say that I guess she's not speaking. Kate Donahue, for those that don't know, is running for state rep. So she actually submitted her resignation as co-chair of the Campaign Services Committee. And so I just think there's so much gratitude that I personally need to give her, but also you, Amanda. She's done terrific work. So
Well, and I'd like to say the same, and also just say a huge thanks to Alex Bosch, who's been, we've been like the three amigos doing this, and it's been a lot of fun, but also incredibly satisfying. And I'm so appreciative of Kate. So I wanted to give you the prerogative in terms of.
Well, I appreciate it. So thank you, Kate, and congratulations. And I'm sure you'll get.
You're
thanks.
welcome. Thank
All
you
right.
very much for the opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Terrific. Okay, so we now thank you, and now we're to Public Policy Subcommittee co-chaired by Senator Jamie Eldridge, Martina Jackson, Ann Roosevelt, and Parvez Wahid. I'd like to start by recognizing Martina Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I would also like to, I'd also like to thank Jamie, Jamie, Ann Roosevelt, Parvez, and Ralph Edwards. The Public Policy Committee is working hard, A, to save democracy, and B, to save the planet. And to that end, we have a subcommittee on climate crisis, which is co-chaired by Ann Roosevelt and State Committee member Cavallines. Our goal is to reach out to every single ward, Democratic ward committee and town committees, enlist support to have somebody who will work with us in their local communities to get across the information that there are programs and funding for residents to weatherize their homes, to make their homes more energy efficient, and also to work with their municipal governments to take advantage of the many programs that exist for making communities more climate aware. We're also working with our Senator Ed Markey, and we will be preparing a forum for April around Earth Day to define some of the programs that are available both through the state and federal government. And we're also really interested in producing a very energized network to help us to lobby for climate calming legislation. And we rely heavily on Senator Eldridge for guidance. He has been really very, very helpful to us. If you're interested in signing on and joining, we will shortly have a place on the Mass Dems website where you can join our efforts. As I said, this is open to every single Democrat and every single activist Democrat. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I apologize for those that are following along on the agenda. Occasionally, I scrolled too far in my script and I ran over the JFK Scholarship Committee. We have three terrific chairs. They have a great program going on. Brenda Brathwaite, Charlotte Gola Ritchie, and Max German. And I'm not sure which chair I'm recognizing our JFK Scholarship Committee.
I'm going to start and then I'm going to kick it to Charlotte. So thank you, Mr.
Hey,
Chair.
Max.
Yeah. So hello, Democrats. Thank you. So really quick, we want to try to keep this concise, but we're going to be doing the JFK Scholarship and Joe Moakley internship a little differently this year. We've been working with the party, and we think one of the things we came up with was we're going to split it into two different cohorts. Normally it's a summer cohort, but we're going to do a spring and a fall. And the reason for that is we're going to base them around the convention and then the coordinated campaign in the fall. So the spring will be from March 28th to May 16th. And then the fall is September 19th after the primary to November 11th, which is the Friday after the Tuesday, November election. And so our thinking was that this is a big year for Democrats, especially Massachusetts Democrats. And so being an intern during these times is an amazing opportunity for a lot of young people to show them how the party works, make these connections, build out your networks, and kind of learn the ropes. And so that was our goal, was to provide kind of centering it around both of these provides people that opportunity. So what we're going to have, it is a 20-hour per week commitment. It's going to be virtual. And I think the party seems to be, there's however the pandemic goes, they're very responsive to that. And I love to say that most importantly, these are $15 per hour paid internships that that the party's offered. And like I said, it was bumped up to 8, and we're very grateful for that, 8 Moakley internships. And so these will be divided between each cohort. So there'll be 4 in the spring, 4 in the fall, and then we have still the 2 JFK scholarship recipients who also have the opportunity to intern with the party as well. And I'm very excited about this. Brenda and Charlotte and the whole committee, we've been working hard to kind of hammer this out. And we're very excited because we think it's a win-win. We get to give young people these opportunities, and then also, you know, help the party staff them up during these really important times. And so I'm going to pass it to Charlotte, who's going to talk a little bit about our outreach plan and kind of some of the work that we need to do going forward.
Thanks, Max. Hello, everyone. So given the change in our program, these 2 internship cycles, we will definitely need everyone's help with outreach. We would like you to let your ward committees know, let your organizations, local organizations in your community that work with young people, and also, you know, your houses of worship. So any organizations that are connected to, focused on young people, you know, reach out to them and let them know there's this opportunity. Feel free also to share the flyer with your local media outlets. This is a nice program for the party because the emphasis is not so much on asking for something. The focus is on what we're offering. And that is a wonderful opportunity for a young person in your community. So as we wrap up, I want to acknowledge other co-chair Brenda Brathwaite, members of the JFK Scholarship Committee, and also Joe Sherlock, who does a wonderful job providing the committee with staff support. We could not do it without them. And of course, Gus and Veronica for their continued support. If you have any specific questions, I want to invite you to reach out to Brenda, Joe, Max, or me. And we look forward to working with you all to get another wonderful group of young people engaged in our party activities. Thanks, everyone.
Charlotte, Max, Brenda, thank you so much. Really appreciate all the hard work that you put in. And I'm glad you point out Joe. Joe, great job. We will now go on to the Personnel Subcommittee report. I recognize Mark DeSalvo to deliver the report on the Code of Conduct by the committee.
Thank you very much, everybody. Welcome. Is it afternoon yet? Not quite. Still good morning. The Executive Committee and the DSC asked the Personnel Committee to accelerate to this meeting the planned deadline for the delivery of the recommendations of a Code of Conduct for employees, volunteers, and those under the direct guidance of the same. As previewed in past meetings, we initially reviewed some 48, I think, state, party, and relevant institutional codes of conduct. More closely, we assessed 30 of them and chose to use the well-regarded California State Party Code as a template. It was adapted to our interest here in Massachusetts with over a half a dozen drafts before this recommendation was made. Please allow me to thank my committee colleagues who diligently contributed to the work product in front of us today. Elaine Almquist, Donovan Birch, Leon Brathwaite, Karen Payne, Maria Robinson, Drew Russo, and Tina Shinnick. And as you can see, we're a very broad representation of the Democratic State Committee. It is clear to me that the code presented is an advancement of the state of the art with an appropriate mix of guidance and specificity made necessary by, unfortunately, our contemporary times. Personally, I fully expect that this document will be used as a template for other state parties and institutions who newly create or choose to update their current, perhaps even out-of-date codes of conduct. Apropos of that, and before discussion, I'd like to, in order to move this, I move that we adopt the code of conduct presented for employees and volunteers, allow for non-material technical Scrivener changes should such prove necessary, and refer the document to the Rules Committee for its review to establish a code of conduct for DSC members and present such at the April meeting. Happy to take any questions or commentary.
So is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second the nomination, second the
Second the
motion.
motion.
Thank you.
Okay.
Queries from anyone?
Okay, this is a living document. We'll go to Dennis. Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, first, I want to thank Mark and the committee for their hard work. But my question is, why does it, since the committee has done this work, and obviously they've done a huge amount of research, why is it being referred to the Rules Committee to be reviewed as opposed to simply being either adopted or not adopted based upon what the committee has done?
Let me help you with that. My pleasure, Dennis. First of all, it is being recommended for adoption for that category of people whom we have, the Personnel Committee has some responsibility for, as directed by the State Committee when they gave us this obligation. So we are responsible for employees, volunteers, and those people who are under the direction of the same. So that's why it's been crafted exclusively for that audience at this moment. So we are recommending that it be adopted for that audience, recommending as well that it be referred to the Rules Committee for it to make whatever changes or adaptation, if any at all, that it believes appropriate, so that a code of conduct will be established for members as well. And the Rules Committee is the party that has that responsibility.
That makes sense, Dennis?
Yeah, I know, I understand. So that they would not apply it to the people who it's already been applied to by Mark's committee, but would rather look at it in terms of applying it to others. So is there a
the motion is for
definition?
it to be in effect for staff, but
Yeah.
for members, it's going to the Rules Committee, so that, because it was written for staff to see if it makes any difference. It also gives the members notice that this is happening, because that was not the purview of the Personnel Committee.
Okay, and are there definitions in what your committee has recommended, Mark, as to who falls under those categories to which those rules apply?
Yes, it does. It's very specific relative to that, number one.
Thank you.
Secondly, that it is a mix of general guidance for those people for whom it affects, and some specificity, so that there's a clarification as to the broad nature in which we wish to accept and understand appropriate behaviors.
Okay, thanks again, Mark. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Dennis.
Holly.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say that I wanted to go to the Rules Committee because I want, we talked about this at the executive meeting, I want this to also be a code of conduct for our state committee members. Thanks, Gus.
That is clearly the expectation, and the guidance that was given to us when we took this was to write it in such a fashion that it could be adopted for personnel and then be referred and with as minimal changes as possible, but that's their judgment and ultimately the members' judgment, adapted and applied specifically to members. I would hope personally that our adoption of this for those people under our direction and control provides at least some patina of obligation that the code of conduct is by inference applicable to us, at least in terms of general behavior.
Thanks, Mark.
Carrie.
So just to be clear, so right now the goal is to have this in effect for all paid employees of the party, correct?
Paid employees of the parties, volunteers, and anybody who falls under the direction of either of those categories.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. And then the other thing is, since I know you said about like the effect of the code of conduct, is this going to be like what is the date of effect going to be like when it's adopted, or will this also apply retroactively?
Well, the code of conduct does not officially exist until such time as it's adopted. So it will exist in the rule book. I will leave it to council to suggest whether or not there's an applicability period beyond that.
Thank you so much, Mark.
You're welcome, sir.
I can't.
Marietta?
Oh, Marietta, you're on mute.
Marietta, you're on, there you go, go ahead.
Thank you, Mark. I think it's important. Where do we?
I'm
get-
sorry, Marietta, I cannot hear you. I don't know if others have that.
Oh, right, I'll try it again.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
You just speak loud, yeah.
All right, so my question is, how do we see what you have done? Is it on the website?
It's been shared in the chat. It was sent out in the state committee mailing that we sent to you. And if you are not able to find it, don't hesitate to reach out, but it was sent out under the personnel subcommittee report. Veronica just shared it in the chat again.
Thank you, I'll double check, and thank you for your work. I agree.
Okay.
Not only for us as members of personnel or members of the Democratic State Committee, but in our personal lives. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Mel or Tina?
Hey, Mark, it's Mel. Just a quick question. In its present form, what modifications will we need for it to be adopted for use by the general membership? I know your present form you have now, it's designed for staff, which I appreciate, but in looking at the long term, what steps will we need to take in its present form? We need to modify it for the general membership.
I certainly want to give room for the Rules Committee to be able to make that judgment themselves, but it could be as minimal as adding the word member to the definition of the categories that are obligated now, assuming your adoption of this code of conduct.
I'm on the team.
I would also tell you that the committee deliberately wrote it so that it could be adopted in whole or in part if in fact the Rules Committee in its own judgment chose to do so.
Hey, Sam, I'm going to recognize Jim because he may have an answer. If it's not an answer, Jim, then we'll go to Sam.
It is an answer, Gus. Very briefly with regard to retroactive application, rules cannot be applied retroactively because there was no notice. However, right now we have very general standards of conduct in the charter and bylaws. If there were a complaint under these general standards for things that happen before the rules are effective, the rules could be argued as a method for interpretation of what the committee meant by the general standards, but they can't be applied verbatim per se.
Thank you so much.
Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So first, I took a look at the document, and it's very concise, which is very good. That means it's easy to apply because of its conciseness. So my compliments on that. But my question is, how does this apply to if you're officer or chair of a local town or a city committee, or is that a different process that has to be implemented for that?
It does not apply to them in that role if in fact it's specific to that. Certainly there could be amendment to, and I suggest that we ought to apply it to ourselves as members before we extend it to others. But certainly there could be a process either through charter or our convention circumstance that allows us to be able to extend the obligation to others.
Thank you.
Could I jump in once more, Gus, for 1 second?
Jim, go ahead. Yep.
So the bylaws apply to the state committee and all subcommittees and groups formed by the state committee. to apply to the ward and town committees and the city committees, we would need a charter amendment.
Thank you, Jim. We'll go to Kevin.
Just a question. Because I'm thinking, that there's a clear distinction between a political position and a administrative or, impartial paid position. I can see how there's certain criteria more restrictive when it comes to staff, paid staff in their conduct, because they've got a certain role that's to at least to a certain extent nonpartisan, at least as to the concept of the party. But then again, those who are elected, by their constituency in a particular district or what have you, by other state committee members. I mean, those are political positions. And there's always that tension between, conduct, which is, necessary and required for good, healthy debate, and the right to contest, even when you have a minority position that might not be popular, but nonetheless, you should be able to express, and shouldn't be squelched. So I was wondering how that tension
Okay, Kevin, if I may,
was addressed.
I think that is, if I'm interpreting your point, I think, or question, I think that's more for the Rules Committee for the upcoming debate. I don't think that applies to this.
I'd only suggest in augmentation to that is that there is nothing in this code of conduct that restricts a proper and appropriate use of free expression.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
I see two hands.
I have a question. In the beginning, you said you're going to ask people to speak for and against things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to ask anybody want to speak against this motion.
Okay, yeah. I see two questions to Dennis or Christopher. Do either of you want to speak against this?
No, I had a question before I vote.
Okay, so we're going to just take the quick question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is for this particular code of conduct, what is the enforcement procedure?
Not part of our bailiwick, and clearly there needs to be staff, management, and rules committee review relative to enforcement. We have a mechanism right now under the general code of behavior that Jim was referring to earlier. But if it needs to be adapted because of the more specificity of this, then it will become, as Gus characterized it, a living document, and it will likely spawn other circumstances of how we review and adjudicate circumstances that may be a violation of the code of conduct.
So given the fact that if we adopt it, there's no way to enforce it, should we wait until there is?
I don't believe that that's a correct characterization. The committee has the ability to enforce its own rules of conduct. The management will have an obligation, this meaning the executive director and the chair, will have an obligation of enforcing the rule, the code of conduct for its employees and those people who are directed under it. And that will be up to them administratively on how to do such in that narrow circumstance. It's much more complicated when it comes to members, and that's why it's going to go to rules relative to a member application.
Gus, may I jump in once again?
Always happy to have you backstop me, Jim, by the way, so go ahead, correct anything that I've misstated.
I am supporting what you just said, Mark.
Oh, good, thanks.
Management and leadership of the state committee have the power to hire and fire and dismiss people, all subject to our union contract and ultimately action by the state committee itself. But there are enforcement mechanisms. What we haven't had in the past are specific standards.
That's correct. I mean, this follows up. I mean, this helps significantly because it puts in writing the standards that we have to follow. So, I mean, Mark, I really want to say thank you for doing that. Seeing no more hands, do I have a we have a motion for a second. All those in favor, hold on. Russ, is it a question?
Yeah, my
Aye.
only objection is that I understand what the procedure is and what's happening, but anyone who should be in violation of them, these rules, they do not know what their destination is for their infraction of whatever.
Right.
So there's no clear statement of what the penalty is for these infractions.
There is not. It is deliberately written in that fashion. Every other templated code of conduct that we had actually stepped away from that definition, because it in some circumstances, or in some cases rather, it may be circumstantial. In others, it will be defined. And as the document grows and our experience with utilizing it expands, we'll be able to better provide processes, practice, and definition.
Excellent. Okay. Jim, quick point, then I'm going to go to
Just
the
say, every employee and every volunteer knows they can be hired and fired, and they can be, their activities can be restricted, or they can be removed from a volunteer activity. So I think people have that general awareness, and that was true under the very general standards, and that remains under these standards.
Claire, is it a question? No, you're muted, Claire.
My question is, was the union involved in developing this at all?
It was not.
Okay.
We have to share it with the union as soon as it gets passed. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Gus. Thank you.
Okay, hearing no opposed,
Gus.
it's a vote. So is this an abstention, or I'm hearing a voice somewhere?
Yeah, Gus, it's Ed Collins. I actually had my hand up for a question. It can be asked after the fact.
Okay, let me call the vote, and then I'll go to your question. The code of conduct is passed for members. It is also forwarded on to the rules committee. Ed, your question.
My question would have been, and it was partially addressed. I think it has to be more than shown to the union. It's actually a mandatory subject to collective bargaining.
Yeah.
Because it has the potential for discipline, even though it's not specified in the rules itself what that might be. So I just want to make sure that we're fully aware of our bargaining.
We are fully aware of that. We need to document.
And I completely agree with that. If the union were to come back with an objection to this, we would have to first of all bargain, and then bring whatever the conclusion of that is back to this committee.
Thank you.
We needed a document to use. Thank you. Hey, Mark, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the hard work. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for entrusting us, and kudos to the committee.
Great
We're
job,
now on to the
Mark.
labor outreach report. I'd like to invite Jim Pimentel to deliver the labor outreach report, and as reflected in our new minutes, he is one of the people who actually gave a report at the last meeting, but we said wasn't there. So I know you're there now, and I know you're here. So Jim.
Thank you, Gus, and Happy New Year, everyone. I apologize in advance if you hear any background noise. I've got a couple of guys assembling a treadmill in the room behind me. So the committee met Tuesday night. We recapped the MNA strike at St. Vincent's. On the heels of the strike, the MNA staff are straight out with the very complicated return to work process that was negotiated, as well as a decertification election initiated by the scabs with heavy involvement by the Right to Work Foundation. And that election is scheduled for, I believe, February 3rd. The nurses also held a rally on the 13th on the Taunton Green related to problems at Morton Hospital, and they held an informational picket at St. Luke's in New Bedford this past Thursday, where they're still fighting for a first contract. And I spoke at that event. Brian Dunn gave an update on the status of the wage theft legislation. When you talk to your state reps, please ask them to send a letter to the chairs of Labor and Workforce Development, urging them to report the bill out favorably. I'll send in a flyer to be dropped into the chat so that everyone will have the bill numbers. I also spoke at a wage theft forum for the Brockton area this past Wednesday night that was on Zoom. Max Sherman spoke on the ballot question related to the gig economy and reported that big tech dumped over $17 million into the campaign in 2021, with Lyft spending $14 million alone, while Uber, DoorDash, and Instacart kicked in roughly $1 million apiece. You can be sure they're going to dump a bunch more money into the campaign this year as well. They spent over $200 million in California pushing the same ballot question. Please make sure the members of your committees are educated on this issue. The group behind the campaign is very slick and likes to brag that if the question passes, the employees will receive extra benefits. But as Brian Dunn pointed out, there's nothing preventing these companies from giving their employees the benefits right now. Brian also gave a quick report on special elections. We celebrated UAW and DSC member Lydia Edwards' election to the state Senate, and excitement was expressed regarding Kate Donahue's race for state rep. Committee member Carlos De Silva also talked about his campaign for Plymouth County Commissioner. Republican Mayor Shauna O'Connell of Taunton pushed through changes to the city's charter towards the end of 2021 that would give her more executive powers and includes anti-union language that would prevent some municipal workers that are currently unionized from being part of the union. A few of us from Labor have been meeting with some local elected leaders because we believe the labor provisions in the charter violate Mass General Laws Chapter 150E, which governs labor relations and public employees. A home rule petition was filed in the legislature to approve the charter, but the whole local delegation is opposed to it. When it gets to a hearing, they all plan to testify against it, as well as Steve Tolman. We ended the meeting beginning a conversation about how to get conservative Dems in the legislature to be more supportive of labor. I used the example of my state senator, Mike Rodrigues, who is the current chair of Ways and Means and tried to get the legislation funding the construction of the new Holyoke Soldiers Home passed without PLA language. After the PLA language was reinserted into the bill via amendment, he voted against it, along with 2 Republican senators. Committee members asked if we could get a legislative scorecard from the Mass AFL-CIO on how legislators vote on labor issues. Finally, I'd like to say I was very impressed with all the AAOC candidates. I congratulate the winners, and I urge them to consider joining the Labor Outreach Committee as well. That's my report, Gus. Thank you.
Jim, thank you very much. We will move on to the Women's Outreach Report, co-chaired by Norma Schulman, Adeline B., and Maureen Butt. I will recognize Maureen Butt to deliver the report.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. A really quick update. We just wanted to recognize 2 women got elected in the legislature. We have 2 new women, Jamie Bolsito from Topfield and Lydia Edwards, who we all heard from earlier today. So we worked on those campaigns, really proud of the campaigns they run and having them represent us. Just want to highlight, and I think it's going to be put in the chat, we are partnering with New Hampshire. As mentioned, they have important elections coming up. So there is an out-of-state kickoff meeting on Tuesday, January 25th at 5:30. The link is in the chat. Thank you, Veronica. So please join the Women's Outreach Committee for that. And one other thing, I just am taking the prerogative to say, we are all focused on the great statewide elections that we have and the legislative elections we will have later this year. I just am encouraging everyone to pay attention to the local elections in 312 towns that we have this spring, starting March, April, May for most people. And those are just really important for us to build our bench and elect more people like me on a local level. Thank you.
Maureen, thank you. And thank you for highlighting that. And thank you for the work you do locally. Much appreciated. Field Services. Next is Field Services, co-chaired by Karen Payne and Sandy Milano. Karen or Sandy?
It's Karen. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This is going to be short, but Field Services held their meeting for this year on January 12th, and we had 3 topics that we are focusing on, areas that we would focus on for work for this year. One is to update the chair's manual. We have vigorously had some folks signing up for that, so we have a full list of folks to start the chair's manual. We also reached out to the disabilities subcommittee to ask if they would like to join us on that. And I got a response from Cheryl Cummings, and we have a person from her subcommittee that will be joining us on the updates to the chair's manual. So that committee will just have to formalize getting a kickoff meeting, and they'll start working on the updates. We also had discussion on Blueprint 2022, and we asked that the Field Services Subcommittee support the Blueprint 2022 in contacting the volunteers when their training comes up. It's that they have trainings once a month on Wednesdays, and hopefully the Field Services Subcommittee will be able to handle those phone calls to those selected volunteers. It's about roughly runs about 150 calls per training class. So we've been helping out since 2021. Also, and we also provided the calendar for that for all the committee people, subcommittee Field Services people to us to sign up. We also had we asked for all of the Field Services subcommittee members to join the caucus training that's coming up. We provided the training schedule. We asked them to be to train as chairs and the technical staff. We Joe Sherlock is also our staff support person, and he was on the call and gave us an overview on what would be what's needed for the upcoming caucuses and how Field Services could help in supporting these efforts. So that is out there. We sent that list out, and we're waiting for the folks to sign up, and hopefully we'll have enough people to help support Joe's efforts and the party's efforts. Also, there's we're doing a survey for establishing a monthly meeting for Field Services so that we can stay on top of our commitments. And that's the report. Thank you.
Karen, thank you. Thank you very much. Before we get to the DNT members report under additional subcommittee reports, LGBTQIA+, I will recognize Diego.
Thank you so much. Want to take about 30 seconds just to say that we will begin our monthly meeting schedule, so that we're doing that. We're going to have a special meeting because of an opportunity the DNC folks will mention. So LGBTQIA+ folks, look for an email today to schedule a meeting either tonight or tomorrow for us to do some exciting input to provide back to the DNC. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Okay, we will now move to the Teresa. Did you have something? I don't think you need a new. Okay, we're going to go to the DNC report. DNC report.
Okay, Gus, this is Mel. I guess was going to be, I'll go off first.
Okay.
Just wanted to, oh, okay. Is Deb there?
I am.
Okay, fire off, Deb. You can go first.
All right. So, germane to Diego's teaser. Thank you, Diego, for the teaser. We always should have one of those. The DNC LGBTQ plus caucus chairs, Earl Folks and Sam Allerton, Alleman, who is the director of the LGBTQ caucus.
It's an LGBT thing.
It's an LGBT thing. Okay. Are holding listening. I appreciate it. Are holding listening sessions by caucus members, starting with the Northeast region, which is us, on Tuesday, January 25th, which is why Diego is saying you have to spring into action, because it is necessary. And we just can't have Massachusetts falling behind on this one because we're leaders all the way, pal. I have, and Karen has contacted our DNC fellow member, the co-chairs of the LGBTQ plus subcommittee, and asked for their input in the support of this meeting. And obviously we are getting it in large part. Diego, again, thank you very much. As usual, you rise to the occasion and you're going to make us look great, and I appreciate it. On the shorthand, I'm now going to turn this over to Mel, and he'll talk to you a bit about a great call that we had with our chair, Jamie Harrison, this week in about the first anniversary of the administration.
Thank you, Deb. And thanks, Diego, for the intro. That was great. As Deb just mentioned, we had a great call with the chair. And one of the things I want to mention to everyone here is that the DNC is launching the Coalition for Community Engagement Project with the goal to establish long-term presence in communities across the country. Now, the focus is to create and build coalitions within constituency groups, labor, women, and youth. Now, one of the things that we learned from 2020 is that we need to increase our strategies in terms of reaching these communities. So one of the things we're doing, the target goal is to increase voter registration and education in these communities, to build better methods in terms of phone banking and technology like texting, because one of the questions that came up was that in 2020, bilingual materials and education was lacking. And one of the things we want to do is try to create a method of increasing that as we go into the 2022-2024 election cycle. The chair mentioned, and many of the members within that meeting mentioned, the necessity for us to increase our ability to reach a lot of these key communities, because when we did polling post the 2020 election, we found that a lot of those community leaders and outreach groups felt that the party needed to create a more inclusive material outreach process, both from the state parties and the candidates themselves and the DNC. So this goal that we're going to be doing, it'll be a complete rollout, and my colleagues on the DNC will be also included as we put this information out. The Coalition for Community Engagement Project will be going out to everyone so that it ties into our Blueprint 2022 project. I'm hoping that within the next 6 months, I had a conversation with Roger Lau and the chair, Chairman Harrison, and we're going to try to see if we can get some information out as soon as possible so we can start getting everyone engaged in this important outreach effort across the country, and specifically for us in Massachusetts, as we start going into our gubernatorial and constitutional officer races. Thank you, everyone, and thanks, Deb, and again, Diego, and congratulations to both the people who are members who ran and the winners for our affirmative action and our LGBTQ plus seat for LGBTQ community. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you.
I tried, it wouldn't come up.
Oh, Brenda, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I had a couple of things. Thank you, Gus. First of all, in terms of celebrating the first anniversary of the president's election, I just wanted to point out that he has appointed 42 new federal judges. This is an unprecedented number, going all the way back to JFK, who I think had a little bit more, but 70% of them are women. And the second thing I wanted to mention, going back to JFK Scholarship, in case folks missed it, is that the flyer is in the chat, and we really need folks to take a look at that and get the word out for us. You've done a great job for us in the past, helping with recruitment, and with the different model that we have this year, it's really important that that flyer get distributed to all your different constituencies. Thanks very much.
Thank you. We have a hand, actually. Sherwood Guernsey.
Yes, thank you very much, Gus. I just want to speak to the DNC issues in that a lot of us are working in rural areas where we have to recover some votes if we expect to win congressional and national elections. And I keep hearing language about how rural areas will be focused. The Rural Freedom Network that I work with, and several members on this call, are working in Pennsylvania, rural Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and New Hampshire. And there is no presence of any program or support for the rural Democratic committees in that areas. And I really pass this along to all the DNC members to please emphasize that with the communications director, the CEO, and Jamie himself. Jamie says it's important. I see nothing actually coming down to help those communities that we're working in. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to very quickly, if you don't mind, Gus, can I just address that? Simply because I think that everyone knows how, and Sherwood, you know as well, that how aggressive I am about rural outreach. And right now there is a very aggressive effort underway. We have a new set of co-chairs for the rural rural council, which is hopefully going to be a rural council before the end of this, a rural caucus rather, before the end of the season, which will up the game. So we're working at it as fast as we can. I promise you, I will keep you in the loop. There are a number of very aggressive programs that are being put together, one of which was spoken about yesterday that I'm not in a position to be able to announce it to this group at the moment because it's in the early stages. But I promise you, it's not going to be dropped. It's Jamie Harrison called his new PAC after he left elective office, running for elective office, Dirt Road PAC, because he was born on a dirt road. He does get it. Okay.
Yeah, I agree, Debbie. I know that, all that. I just don't see anything on the ground, and it's the cycle again.
I know, but you will. I'll talk to you about this later on this week. Okay. I was going to talk to you and Lee anyway. Thank you so much, and thanks, Gus, for the point of personal privilege, as it were.
Thank you, and thank you, Sherwood. Thank you to the DNC members. Appreciate all your hard work. Great group to work with. Okay, we're going to move on to state party attendance requirements. At the last meeting under the new rules, under new business, I said we would put this in the agenda for the next meeting because we have, in the fall of 2019, we passed a new section of our bylaws, which is Article 8. It's actually an addition to Article 8, Article 8A6, which is members of Democratic State Committee who are portioned, who miss 8 consecutive meetings of the Democratic State Committee without medical or active military excuse, have failed to meet the minimum level of attendance and shall deemed to have resigned from the state committee. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we reached out to all of those people because the 8th meeting after the first meeting, which would have been the presidential primary organizational meeting, so in April, was the November meeting. And so 19 people we reached out to, 8 people got back to us, 11 people did either affirmatively said happy to be knocked off or did not get back to us. The 8 people that have under this section who have been resigned are William Bulger, a 20-year member, Chris Cawley, a 20-year member, Janet Coughlin, 20-year member, Maureen Hegarty, 20-year member, Donna Kelly Williams, a 20-year member, John Kerry, a 20-year member, Pat McGovern, a 20-year member, John Olver, a 20-year member, Shirley Renard, a 20-year member, Marilyn Sullivan, a 20-year member, and Harry Thompson, male caucus seat in the 2nd Suffolk. So that 2nd Suffolk is now vacant. We will be filling that during this caucus season. We will get to all of the committees for that caucus seat in the 2nd Suffolk. So people are aware. There was no one that came up at this meeting. There are 2 people that we're getting close for the next meeting, but I saw them both here today because we reached out to them. So we've got a clean slate right now for a while. So we've got good attendance. Are there any questions? Okay. We will move on to new business. And before I invite others, I want to bring up that I've received a letter of resignation from just yesterday from Mary Ford. So Mary Ford is resigning from the state committee, former mayor, longtime member, 20-year member. Want to thank her for her service, really appreciate it. She is a 20 member, so it doesn't create a vacancy. We did have some seats that were added on, so new topic under new business. According to the charter amendments that were adopted at the convention last September, it called for an addition of 2 non-binary seats and 2 queer seats to the committee. We will elect these members at our April meeting. Anyone interested in running can submit a letter of intent to Veronica at veronica@massdems.org. But as we saw today, candidates are also allowed to be nominated from the floor. Those are my announcements. I will see 2 hands. I'll start with Juan. I see 3, Juan, and then Bob.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time, and through you to the members. Just want to invite our membership to call all of their reps this week. The House will be taking up the Votes Act, and we are it's a critical moment for the same-day registration provisions in the Vote Act.
No, I'm all done, Paul. I'm gonna leave it on until they finish, but I'm not participating.
Juan, unmute yourself again, Juan, sorry.
Sorry about that. Yep. So the same day registration provisions in the Votes Act, which research shows would increase Latinx and Black turnout by some 17%. They were included in the Senate bill, and we're hoping that they are also included in the House bill so that there is a more clear and smooth path for this provision. And we're at a critical moment where where the speaker really needs to hear from his members. So if you have 5 minutes within the next 4 days or even before that, maybe the next 48 hours, to call your rep or email your rep to reach out to the speaker on Monday, we would really appreciate your help to speak to supporting the same day registration provisions of this bill that's getting debated on Thursday on the House floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I hope everyone has a healthy weekend.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Bob Peters, then Terry Alpha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick note, in the rules for caucus requires each caucus read the chair's letter, and where most of our caucuses appear to be virtual this year, would the chair consider recording a message for use by committees on Zoom meetings? And I guess further, I would suggest anyone running for office, certainly our committee would really appreciate if the candidate messages for candidates running would be willing to record and submit recorded messages to be used.
That's a terrific suggestion. Actually, the staff's already brought that up. So it will actually be much better just because other people will make it really good, but we will do that.
Thank you.
Terry, and then Steve Leibowitz.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure, was it just the wage theft fact sheet that the labor subcommittee submitted? Because I know like I'm sorry if I want to say Jim, but I know that's the wrong name. I know he mentioned that he was going to give. Oh, sorry about that. My fault. Oh, it is. Oh, okay. I know that he mentioned he was going to share like a bunch of docs. And I just want to make sure it wasn't just a fact sheet as well, because some of the stuff you mentioned, like the Morton issue, like I'm really interested in that. So yeah.
Okay. Well, we will.
Gus?
Yep.
Yeah, it was actually just the fact sheet on wage theft that I sent, but I'm happy to have a conversation offline with Terry regarding the other issues.
Thank you so much.
With you, Terry. Yep.
Or I can get stuff to the staff as well to share with everyone.
Yep. Perfect. We'll go Steve, and then we'll go Julie. Steve Leibowitz, and then Julie Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, briefly, I don't think our meeting should go by without mentioning the 49th anniversary of Roe today and the important work that lies ahead of us in terms of protecting women's right to choose and reproductive freedom. Second, I sent out an email, and I just want to follow up with folks that I'm putting together a Jewish caucus of Massachusetts Democrats, and the purpose is threefold on this. One is to advocate for the significant overlap between Jewish values and progressive issues that we all believe in. Second is to speak out and educate on issues of anti-Semitism. We saw what happened in Colleyville, Texas recently, and just the other day, there was an incident with the despicable member of Congress, Lauren Boebert from Colorado, who said to a group of Jewish visitors in the Capitol, asking if they were doing reconnaissance. So these things need to be absolutely addressed with increasing numbers of incidents. And third is making sure that the Jewish vote gets out in our elections. The Jewish vote is, I believe, just over 4% of the state. And a lot of times we're dealing with close elections, so anything we're able to do to mobilize that part. Anybody is welcome, DSC members, non-DSC members. We had a great first meeting with, again, members, non-members, and some electeds involved. There is an announcement for the next meeting in the Dem Dispatch, which is will be on Feb 1st, Tuesday at 7 p.m. Anybody that has questions, feel free to reach out to me, StephenL57@gmail. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We will do Julie, then Nicole.
Hi, Gus.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, good, thank you. I've had a couple people in the district reach out to me, the award chairs, and they wanted to know when they're calling it the publicity letter. It's the one that you send out on what they should be sending to newspapers.
Goes out on Monday.
Great, thank you so much.
Welcome. Okay, we'll do Nicole, then Eileen.
Hi, thank you, Gus. I just wanted to, make the same request as last time. I'm hearing like so many great initiatives and other things being thrown out here. I loved the email that was sent out after our last meeting. I still have it and use it for reference. So if you guys could again, and also make it habit moving forward, put all of these action items and this great information in one email. I know it comes out in the meeting minutes, but I think it's good to have it like right in front of me in an email that I can just click on everything in one spot. Thank you.
So okay to put that in Thursday's email? Because we send out an email every Thursday.
Yeah, just something that will grab my attention as being from this meeting.
Excellent. Sounds good. Eileen, and then John.
I just had a quick question, a follow-up to Bob Peters and to a conversation I've already had. So you are now going to be requesting video comments, statements from all of the candidates?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I am only following up that's up to local committees. I am, he had requested we are going to work on doing the chair's letter. It's my impression from some of the conversations I've had with campaigns that they may do that because many committees have already requested that.
Right.
But I'm not speaking for them.
Okay. All right. So our committee is doing that, as you know, but okay. Thank you.
We'll do John and then Colin. Zelda, do you want me to recognize? I see you keep dropping. Do you want me to do you now, Zelda?
It was an accident. I do want to comment, but I'll go in my place. That's fine.
No, you were there. Zelda McGregor.
Oh, hi. I wanted to touch base on something that came up at the end of our last meeting regarding member attendance.
Yeah.
So is that okay to do now?
Yeah, this is absolutely.
All right, so recognizing how much more accessible these meetings have become, I'd like to make two related motions that I want to explain before formally making the first motion. I want to propose that we further reduce the required number of meetings from 8 to 4. I supported the 2-year requirement when we were in person, but our meetings, being not that easy to get to all the time. I live on Cape Cod. It's really gross here today. If I had to drive to Boston or Springfield, I don't think I would have. But we've been fully virtual now for almost 2 years, and you can literally just like hop out of bed and go on the meeting. So the only silver lining really here for us about the pandemic is that we have increased accessibility, and it should stay that way going forward. So we should always have a virtual option.
So that motion will be to send it to bylaws. Is there a second?
Second, Melissa
Okay,
Shapiro.
Second. I will I will, I'll just send it to
Vote.
bylaws.
Vote on it? Vote?
I can send it, the chair can request to send something to committee. I can just send it to the committee. So,
All right, I'd also like to make a motion to require an ongoing virtual option for all DSC events, including the convention, to ensure that future conventions and meetings are either fully virtual or hybrid, for virtual, like with the ability for virtual attendees to fully interact, which we do sometimes still struggle with. But I want to know, so are you sending these each to the committee, or can we vote about this requirement for attendance?
The motion you just made, I'm sending to the committee, which is change it from 8 to 4. So the bylaws committee will discuss that.
Okay, then.
And by the way, the convention is already, it is said by the rules, the convention will have a virtual component this year.
Yeah, I would like it to be that way in forever.
I'll answer that by saying that the rules are done new each year for each rules. And that's not just about your recommendation, that's other people have, over the years have done it. So I can have Jim comment on that, but.
No, I understand that, but it's for all DSC events, including this. So like ideally someday it's going to be super duper to hang out with 400 of our best and closest friends. But the extra accessibility that is given to people who rely on public transportation or rides from someone who might not be able to make the meeting, or, you know, just can't go for some reason, but they could do this.
To your point, we plan to have an accessibility option continuously. I mean, I don't see it stopping. So as I'm chair, so I'm not, if you want to, I'm not sure where that motion would go to, but it's going to happen this year under my chairmanship.
All right.
Okay. Did I recognize everything that you wanted? Zelda?
Yep, thanks.
Okay, Colin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just wanted to take 30 seconds to note the passing of a longtime Democratic and disability activist, John Chappell, who died in December. He had been organizing disabled Democrats as far back as the 1970s, was a witness before Congress in the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and served as Deputy Commissioner of the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission under Governor Dukakis.
Thank you, Colin. And I'm going to recognize John Bussinger because he was about to be recognized and we lowered his hand by mistake. John Bussinger.
Am I on? Oh, hi. Yeah, I did miss the passing of my friend, former state committee member Gary Jones, then of Middleborough. He was on for 8 years. Your former state rep, was my research director when I was House Chair of the Committee on Election Laws, and he was a close by neighbor of Governor Dukakis and myself. So I wanted to note his passing back on September 13th.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you sharing that. Bill Shemin.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, will we have the opportunity to give the bylaws committee input on the suggestion to do a drastic reduction in the attendance thing there?
Yeah. Yes, you should. This meeting. So the answer is yes.
Thank you.
Did I skip over Kevin? Kevin and then Melissa. Kevin Costa, then Melissa.
Oh, just great meeting, well conducted, practical, you know.
Kevin,
goals.
thank you. I appreciate it. I just want to keep going.
No, but I just wanted to say January 6th, I lived in Portugal when it democratized after 48 years of dictatorship. I lived in Brazil when it democratized after 21 years of dictatorship. And, you know, normal politics and the way this meeting is conducted is an example of what, you know, has to be done. But I just want people to recognize that we live at a moment now where of the two major parties, we're the only small d Democratic Party. And, you know, the idea of persuasion among equals is good, true, and beautiful. That's what we're doing. But the alternative, as demonstrated on January 6th, and the threat continues, is that force and fraud be the mechanism by way they, the other party, at least a segment of it wants to govern. So I just wanted to remind us, great meeting, but also we've gotten, the Democratic Party has some very fundamental things to defend. And I just wanted to leave that with you.
Thank you. We'll go to Melissa, Mike Brady, David O'Brien.
Hi, real quick, just following up on the my colleague's request for including a provision to require the virtual component for these meetings. Would that be and as rules and the bylaws are redone each term that we go through, would a virtual option requirement be something that would be appropriate to include in our charter to make sure that that's something that doesn't go away just out of perhaps just oversight or so?
I will ask, because it's the rules, I don't know. Jim Roosevelt? And we can follow up with you, by the way, because the charter amendment deadline's a little bit further down the line.
Okay, great.
To the extent that it is a rule or a bylaw, it would be submitted to the rules committee. For the charter, it would go to the Charter Amendments Committee. Whether it's appropriate or not, I'm not going to take a position on. It would freeze the party for whatever meetings it covers into existing technology.
Okay, well, because I mean, I'm looking at kind of Article 8 general provisions, and that could be considered a component under openness or ethical practices particularly for accessibility for all different routes or for even proxy voting. So
it could be if people thought it was a good idea. Yes.
Yeah. All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, Senator Brady, then David O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a footnote on Saturday, February 5th, there's a Democratic Plymouth County Chairs Breakfast. It's going to be at the Fireside Grill at the Rotary in Middleborough, where Route 28 and Route 44 meet. We have a new chairman of Plymouth County, George O'Toole. He's organized it. John Walsh is one of the guest speakers there, our former chair, as well as any elected officials that want to be on the agenda to speak, who are running for whether statewide office or local offices. And we have a list already. They got to email George at G for George O'Toole, OTOOLE @verizon.net. So G O'Toole @verizon.net. And we're getting a lot of candidates already signed up to speak. We've got to limit everything, but please get in touch. And the last thing is, we lost another great Democrat this past week, Robert McCarthy. He was a former state senator, former representative, former East Bridgewater Democratic Town Chair, and he was a former registrar of probate, Plymouth County. We did an adjournment in his memory in the Senate this past week, as well as the House, but keep his family in your prayers. He was a great Democrat and a perfect gentleman to all of us. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and have a nice weekend, everyone.
Thank you, Senator. David O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great meeting, efficient use of time. I motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, guys. Good meeting.
Okay, no opposed. The meeting is adjourned, but I do want to thank our staff who are absolutely incredible.
Steve, I'm going to make a call. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, mute everybody.
Enjoy it.
But I do want to, while people are still on, I want to thank our staff. The meeting is adjourned, I know, but really great staff. Our executive director, Veronica Martinez, is really holds down the fort. Senior political director, Nigel Simon, our tech and training director, Jeremy Camo, communications director, Allison Mitchell, convention coordinator, Joe Sherlock. And specifically, we had personal meeting assistants today. It's not tonight yet, thank God. Lenita Ann Dykes, Joe Sherlock, and Nigel Simon. Zelda McGregor, thank you, Zelda, and Alex Bausch and Jess Lafferty. It's a lot of work to put these meetings together, so thank you all. And the meeting is adjourned. We can close the